Minwei Chi Nan. Chapter 94. Coming home. LIAN kept a total of 14 people who answered his question with loyalty. Take the rest back with you, the owner instructed the staff. LIAN stood up and spoke to the remaining 14 youngsters. I'll do a few moves and you copy them. He demonstrated the first 10 moves of a boxing set. The 14 youngsters looked at each other as they failed to understand it. A very neat lad first came up and copied those 10 moves. Except for some movements that were not on point, he hardly made any mistakes. Then, the rest came forward to follow one by one. LIAN kept a total of 9 youngsters who managed to remember more than half of the moves and gestured at the owner. The owner quickly came over, 9 people, each for 8 silver taels. LIAN nodded. He took out a 100-tael silver banknote and handed it to the owner. Thank you for your patronage. The owner received the banknote and gave the change of 28 silver taels to him. LIAN took out a 2-tael ingot and threw it at him. Buy ration for 10 people for 2 days and hire 2 fast carriages. The owner said, rest assured, young master. We will adequately prepare them for you. LIAN sat for a short while before the owner said it was done. The 2 carriages were sturdy 2-horse carriages and the coachmen were expert cart drivers. LIAN told the newly bought 9 people to get on the carriages with their belongings. He mounted his horse and led the way in front of them to go out of the city directly. It was already the hour of C. The street was very busy with an endless stream of horses and carriages, and people hurrying to and fro. Note, hour of C is 9 to 11 am. There was a strong smell of medicinal herbs floating in the sky of Qingtian Prefecture. When LIAN overheard the conversation of several passers-by, he learned that there was a large-scale auction of medicinal materials in Qingtian Prefecture these days. All the rare herbs were sold at the auction. Herbal medicine merchants from all over the country came after hearing the news. It was a good thing if one could buy precious medicinal materials to make it as the treasure of the shop. He Sanzo, He Sihai, and He Wu who led their horses along the stream of people as they looked around and simultaneously sighed at the prosperity of Qingtian Prefecture. LIAN glanced at them faintly. With the sway of the reins, the black horse trotted away. The sky of the 6th lunar month rapidly changed. Less than an hour after departure, the dark clouds gathered in the sky. In a moment, it rained heavily. Although there was a canopy over the heads of the 2 coachmen sitting on the shaft, the rain still wet their clothes while the carriage was on the move. They hurriedly took out straw-woven raincoats and put them on. LIAN took out his bamboo hat and rain cape from his pouch on the girdle. Boom! A lightning struck overhead. The rain turned heavier and poured rapidly, making it difficult to see ahead. Old Zhao, the coachman, had wanted to suggest to the employer that they should find a place to rest until the rain receded, but upon seeing that LIAN did not have the slightest mean to stop, he could only continue driving the carriage but with a much slower speed. LIAN turned his head and galloped back to the side of the carriage. Go as fast as you can. I'm going to pay 5 taels more. Old Zhao gritted his teeth and stake it all. Anyway, they often worked, so their bodies were strong and do not easily get sick. It's worth it if they could earn 7 silver taels for this trip. All right, young master can rest assured. LIAN said the same thing to the other coachman. The speed of the 2 carriages did not decrease at all as the 4 horses galloped forward. In the afternoon, the rain stopped. After resting for an hour, the party continued on their journey. The next afternoon, the party arrived in Zhaoyang County. They didn't expect that it was raining much heavier in Zhaoyang County than in Qingtian Prefecture. The road was muddy and hard to tread on. In the county town, LIAN let everyone drink a bowl of hot tea in a tea house before going on the road again. The 2 coachmen looked at each other with bitter smiles and hastily got on the carriages. In leisurely farm residence, Mian stood at the door of the central room. His left hand held a fruit plate and his right hand held a bamboo stick inserted into the peach picked from the magical space to eat. Looking at the direction of the gate through the rain curtain hanging from the eaves, he felt uneasy. Such a heavy rain, LIAN won't rush through the rain, right? Dian Bai squatted at his feet. Its two ears sometimes perked and drooped, and its tail swept the ground, swaying left and right. It looked bored to death. Qin Mian inadvertently saw it, making the corner of his lips curled. He also squatted down and joked, "Dian Bai, are you truly a wolf?" Dian Bai raised its head and opened its mouth wide, "A woo." Qin Mian. After Dian Bai finished howling, it turned to look at him. "Fine, fine, you are a wolf." "A wolf." Qin Mian stood up helplessly, ate the peach nonchalantly and looked at the direction of the gate. But then, Dian Bai suddenly stood up, turned its head to howl at him and ran into the rain curtain. It waggled its tail more happily than usual. Qin Mian's heartbeat quickened. "Is LIAN back?" He put the fruit plate on the windowsill and hurriedly caught up with the wolf. When passing through the gate, Pian Hui and Hemagia barked as greeting to Qin Mian. Not receiving a response, they turned around and ran back to their house. "Where is little young master going? Why doesn't he even take an umbrella?" Aunt Fu worriedly said, "Husband, quickly take the umbrella and catch up to him." "Aunt Fu, I'll go. I'm faster." Shili took the umbrella in Aunt Fu's hand and ran outside. Before Qin Mian reached the entrance of the village, he saw a black horse coming amidst the heavy rain. On the black horse sat the man who had been weighing on his mind. 2 carriages followed after him. Nay! As soon as LIAN saw Qin Mian, he frowned. With a press on his horse's belly, the black horse galloped forward and didn't stop when it reached Qin Mian. Instead, LIAN leaned over, easily picked up Qin Mian and placed him at the front. His left hand pulled off his rain cape and wrapped Qin Mian up with it. Then he scolded, "What are you doing running out?" Qin Mian asked, "Are you stupid? Why didn't you want until the rain stops?" They spoke almost at the same time. LIAN hugged his wife and rubbed his lips on his wife's side face. He didn't say anything else. Jie. Seeing a familiar black horse running over, Shili slowed down and stood on the side of the road, smiling. It turns out that eldest young master has come back. No wonder. "Shili, I'll leave them to you," Qin Mian left a sentence. "Rest assured, little young master." The black horse galloped straight to the door before stopping. After getting off the horse, Qin Mian and LIAN reached out to pull the other into the bedroom at the same time. "Change your clothes," Qin Mian said. He found LIAN's clean clothes and threw them at him. He also found his own. He took off his wet clothes and wiped his body with a dry cloth towel. In front of him was a shining white piece of flesh, somewhat dazzling. LIAN's Adam's apple rolled. He strode over and embraced Qin Mian. "You Qin Mian was soon brought into the midst of passion by LIAN. He yielded in his heart, hugged the man's waist and responded enthusiastically. Creak, the door was pushed open. Qin Mian was surprised and quickly pushed away LIAN. Dian Bai ran in from the door and shook its body, splashing countless drops of water. Its brown eyes looked curiously at its 2 masters. LIAN looked at it with his eyes narrowed. Qin Mian stifled a laugh, quickly wiped the water off his body and put on his dry clothes. "Get out," LIAN pointed to the door. Dian Bai glanced at him, turned around and left slowly. It was unknown whether it was intentional or unintentional that its butt hit the door panel, making the door panel creaked again. Slowly, it moved backward before touching the wall and stilled. "Ha ha ha," Qin Mian couldn't help laughing. Sitting on the bed, he picked up LIAN's clothes and threw them on him, "Put them on. Be careful not to catch a cold." LIAN saw that Qin Mian was already dressed neatly and put on his clothes sullenly. Qin Mian went over and gave him a comforting kiss on the lips. "Did you have a good meal throughout the way? What do you want to eat? I'll make it." "Noodle." Qin Mian dragged him out. I'll make you a noodle soup. They went to the central room and saw Shi Li standing under the eaves. Eldest young master, little young master. Are they all properly arranged? Qin Mian asked. Shi Li said, they're all arranged. There are bunk beds in the servants' quarters, so they will all live together. I asked Aunt Fu to cook noodles for them. The 2 coachmen are still waiting. LIAN fished out 14 pieces of silver from his money pouch and gave it to Shi Li. Qin Mian listened to the sound of rain and said, it seems that the rain won't stop for a while and it's getting dark. Shi Li, if the 2 coachmen don't mind, let them stay for a night and go back tomorrow at dawn. Little young master is very kind. Shi Li nodded in agreement. The 2 coachmen are also worried about this. I'll let them know. Shi Li pulled the horse to leave and went to arrange things in haste. Qin Mian made LIAN eat a peach first. He cooked 2 poached eggs, took out 4 bags of instant noodles from the magical space, and cooked them in a pot. Instant noodles were easier to cook than normal noodles. He peeled a tomato, cut it into pieces, and added them into the noodles for flavor. He also added thin slices of meat and a few pak choy. LIAN dazedly looked at the noodle soup that was emitting a delicious aroma. Qin Mian sat down beside him and urged, aren't you hungry? Quickly eat it. It was still raining, so the indoor was a bit cool. However, LIAN felt a heat current rolling in his chest. He picked up the chopsticks and ate the noodles with his head down. Qin Mian brought in the fruit plate on the windowsill, sat back at the position beside LIAN, and ate the fruit with his cross legs swaying. After LIAN finished the noodle, he urged him to go back to the bedroom and have a rest. LIAN pulled him to lie on the bed together. Qin Mian obediently let LIAN hold him. The days when LIAN was away, he did not sleep well. It was best to sleep on rainy days and a nap was good, too. Suddenly, LIAN got up from the bed and locked the door. Qin Mian was amused. Is he thinking that Dian Bai will run in again? LIAN kissed the tilted corner of his lips. Wife, how is our home these days? Business as usual. Qin Mian lay sideways, stroked the man's side neck with his right hand, and yawned, what about you? Very good. LIAN gripped his hand and hugged him tightly, sleep. I've been missing you these days, Qin Mian said frankly. He raised his head and rested it on his man's shoulder. He also lifted his right leg and put it on his man's legs. What about you? LIAN's temperature that had just cooled down, flared up again. And what? Qin Mian asked deliberately. Don't make trouble. LIAN kneaded Qin Mian's waist and tilted his head to look at the wall. Qin Mian stifled a laugh and stopped teasing him. He hugged the man's waist and closed his eyes. The familiar scent and reassuring breath made him snore in a short time. LIAN turned his head and placed a kiss on Qin Mian's lips. Then he closed his eyes and soon fell asleep as well. When the sound of the rain suddenly stopped, Qin Mian abruptly woke up from his dream. He was in a trance for a moment. He didn't know whether he was dreaming or awake. Awake. A man's magnetic voice rang in his ear. Qin Mian then remembered that LIAN was back. He looked out of the window. It was dark. The rain did stop and there was no sound outside. Hungry. Qin Mian lay on LIAN's body, what about you? A little hungry, too. LIAN's waist moved slightly. Qin Mian's ears turned hot. He jumped up, I'll go. His mouth was sealed. The 2 men crumpled up the sheets with their tossing around. It was a good while before they got their clothes straightened out properly and walked out of the room. LIAN, wearing only his trousers and shoes, went to the central hall. He raised his long arm and lit up 4 wall-hanging candlesticks with a fire starter. What do you want to eat? Qin Mian looked at his strong and powerful arm with appreciative eyes. I want to eat rice. LIAN didn't mind, then cook rice. All right, let's cook rice. Qin Mian went to the kitchen, then fry another instant noodle. I haven't eaten it for a long time, I really miss the taste. LIAN's footsteps paused, try to make it yourself later. Qin Mian was stunned and then laughed, good idea. I'll try it when I have time. Maybe I can do it. LIAN said, what kind of vegetable to eat? I'll go pick. Pick some purple eggplant, some peppers, and some pak choy. End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 95. Armed Servants. When LIAN came out of the magical space after picking the vegetables, Qin Mian asked him about his travels in these past few days while cooking. LIAN relayed what happened one by one. Although he said it succinctly, Qin Mian knew that he galloped without stopping to come home as soon as possible, which made his heart warm. Hey, my man is such a good one. He swiftly made a serving of eggplant with minced meat, a serving of golden garlic spare ribs, a serving of sweet sour pork slices, a serving of scrambled egg with instant noodles and a serving of braised pak choy. Awoo, Dian Bai was unwilling to be left in the cold and rubbed against Qin Mian's legs. Qin Mian smiled and chopped some meat bones for it. Qin Mian slept too much in the afternoon that when he lay in bed at night, he couldn't sleep anymore. LIAN also wasn't sleepy and embraced him from the back with his right palm arbitrarily moved across Qin Mian's body. Qin Mian was agitated and anxious for further intimacy. However, he was afraid of having sex at such a young age, which was not good for his health. Why did he consciously think that he would be the bottom? However, looking at LIAN's height, body, and sturdy tight muscles, could Qin Mian actually press him down? LIAN lifted Qin Mian's nightclothes as hot breath inched closer from behind Qin Mian's ear and finally stayed in his ear. Then, a hand pushed aside his hair before a hot kiss fell on his nape, sucking heavily. Qin Mian squinted and was seized with an impulse to moan, LIAN seemed to be encouraged and raised his left leg to lock the other man's body. Wife, I want you. Qin Mian hesitated for only 2 seconds before turning around and took the initiative to hold his man. Since both sides were willing, why made both sides suffer? As for being young once in a while, it shouldn't matter. Sex was required for harmonious marriage and for physical and mental health. In the dark, LIAN let out a low growl like a starving wolf and pounced on him. When Qin Mian woke up, his body felt like it was crushed by a stone roller. Recalling that his man seemed to have endless energy last night, he felt like kicking him immediately. Fortunately, his body felt refreshed, which meant LIAN had cleaned him up. The smell of chicken wafted in from the outside. He rubbed his waist and sat up slowly. Wife. Qin Mian looked at the man standing at the door, whose eyes were full of tenderness. Suddenly, he couldn't bear to scold him anymore as the corners of his lips rose uncontrollably. LIAN sat down on the edge of the bed and embraced his back. Wife. LIAN's upper body was bare. Qin Mian patted him on the chest as he leaned against him. He first laid down the basic rules, later, 3 times a month at most. To his surprise, LIAN nodded without hesitation, which made him look up in surprise to LIAN. You are still young. LIAN changed the topic. I stewed a chicken. I'll bring a bowl over. Qin Mian had a smiling expression as he glanced at him. Today, I must eat light food. LIAN immediately stood up. Lie down for a while. I'll cook porridge. Qin Mian shook his head. I've already woken up, so I don't want to lie down anymore. LIAN took out a set of clothes from the wardrobe and handed it to him. He lowered his head and kissed him before going out. After Qin Mian had dressed up, he took LIAN's upper clothes and walked out of the room. Outside the house, the hot sunshine shining on the ground was dazzling yellow. The soil looked almost dried. Turned out, it was already in the afternoon. Qin Mian walked into the kitchen and threw the clothes to LIAN. Why are you half naked? Do you want others to know? LIAN took the clothes and put them on, shaking his head, it's hot in the kitchen. Mian hugged his waist and said lazily, it's a little hot today. It's still fine now, but when the 7th and 8th months comes, I'm afraid our house will become hotter, especially our room. There's no ventilation. His wife took the initiative to get clothes, so LIAN quickly reached out and embraced him for fear that he would withdraw. I thought about it. Let's expand the house as soon as possible. How to expand it? Mian also had this idea, but he didn't have time to think about it. LIAN motioned for him to sit down. I'll cook porridge first. We'll talk about it later. Mian shook his head and let him go. I'll wash first. After washing, Man returned to the kitchen. LIAN had already cooked the porridge. Unexpectedly, this guy knew to add some ingredients such as vegetables and minced meat to the porridge. LIAN handed him a cup of water. Mian took a drink. He then leaned on the kitchen stove and resumed the previous topic. You said about expansion, how? LIAN pulled him to the central hall. The front and back doors of the main room were open, so it was very cool. Expand to the west. Build a house of the same size as this house next to the west wall. Then, make a passage from our room. The new house will divide into 2 rooms, one for our bedroom and the other for the storehouse. Mian nodded as he listened. It's good. But I want to make the new house 2 stories. Just like you said, make a passage from the present room. There are going to be 2 rooms on the first floor, 1 guest room and 1 storehouse. We'll set the door of the storehouse outside so no need to go inside to get to it. The whole second floor is going to be a shared bedroom and study, spacious and comfortable. We'll make the windows in the north and south larger, so the rooms would get cool to live in the summer. Then, we'll make a small terrace where we can drink tea and see the scenery in our spare time. In winter, we can move back to our bedroom on the first floor. His wife's plan was better than his. LIAN nodded, listen to you. When Mian finished his porridge, they rang Shili and asked him to bring Uncle Fu, Aunt Fu, and the 9 newly bought people. The 9 newly arrived people had gone through a night and a morning of rest. With the briefing from Uncle Fu, Aunt Fu, and Shili, the 9 new people had a general understanding of the situation of leisurely farm residents. Upon seeing Mian and LIAN sat at the stone table, the 9 people saluted them respectfully. Greetings to eldest young master, little young master. At the side, Shili stood at ready with hands behind his back and looked at LIAN and Mian. As usual, the eldest young master was expressionless and little young master was gentle. However, he always felt that the atmosphere between the 2 masters was different and closer than ever. Even if their limbs did not touch, their eyes collided from time to time, revealing a conspicuous fit. Anyway, if the 2 masters had a good relationship, it meant a good thing for their servants. When the masters were in a good mood, they could work in peace. Shili then stopped contemplating about this anymore. Would the masters please bestow them names? Shili asked with curiosity. When a master gave the family servant a name with a surname, it usually followed the surname of the master. Although the 2 masters were husband and wife, they were men after all, and Mian was always in charge of the family. Which young master's surname would the new 9 people follow? The 9 youths said at the same time, please bestow us names, masters. By bestowing them names, it would allow them to integrate into leisurely farm residents as soon as possible. Mian understood that naming was a way for the servants to start a new life as soon as possible and to enhance their bond with their masters. Uncle Fu and Aunt Fu were husband and wife and they were already old, so he did not want to deprive them of their original names. But this time, these teenagers were still young, have less life experience and easier to mold. Later on, they would be his and LIAN's capable helpers. Resounding names were necessary. Mian also thought about the thing that Shili was curious about. After thinking for a moment, he decided to use both his and LIAN's surnames. As their family's business grew bigger and bigger, the fact that LIAN and he were husband and wife would surely spread further. Instead of waiting for people to make a joke of them in the future, it was better to build momentum now. A matter known to all was not worth mentioning anymore. Mian took a look at LIAN. LIAN's eyes fixed on him with only brand new trust. He gave a light smile, looked at the 9 teenagers in turn, and said, "Line up from the oldest to the youngest." After the 9 people stood still, Mian said, "From left to right, your name is Lei Zhong/Loyal." LIAN grabbed his wife's hand to put it on his leg and covered it with his big palm. Shili beamed with a smile. The 2 masters really had a great relationship. Uncle Fu and Aunt Fu also had smiles on their faces. Lei Gong/respectful, Lei Shun/obey, Lei Cheng/sincere, Lei Xin/truthful. Mian turned his head to look at LIAN and said discontentedly, "Don't just sit, help me think of a few names." LIAN looked at the remaining 4, Lei Hui/benevolence, Lei Jian/resolute, Lei Li/reason, and Lei Yuan/tactful. These names all sounded great, not like the names of servants at all. Happiness shone on the faces of the 9 youngsters. They said in unison, "Many thanks eldest young master and little young master for bestowing our names." Mian asked faintly, "You all must already know the rules of leisurely farm residence." "Yes." "Good. As long as you do not violate the rules of leisurely farm residence, I believe we'll get along very well." Mian smiled faintly, "We bought you to be cultivated as armed servants. From today on, you'll learn martial arts with eldest young master. If you do well, you can take on more important responsibilities in the future." "Yes." Shili's expression changed slightly. "Learn martial arts?" He also wanted to learn it. Mian faintly looked at him. "Shili. From now on, you will also train with them and serve as the team leader for the time being." Shili was overjoyed. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed, "Many thanks, little young master. This young one will live up to the master's expectations." "Get up." Mian looked very pleased. Shili didn't get up. He smiled as he bowed to Mian and LIAN, "Eldest young master and little young master. May I be bold to ask masters to change my name? I also want to be surnamed Lei Qin. Once it's heard, people will know that I belong to the master's family." Mian felt very comfortable with this flattery. LIAN looked at Shili with appreciation. Because of this look, Shili nearly jumped up with excitement. Mian thought for a moment and said, "You will be called LIAN. What do you think, Tie?" LIAN nodded. "Thank you very much, masters." LIAN was so happy he grinned from ear to ear. Mian asked LIAN, "Should you start today?" LIAN shook his head and told LIAN, "Take them to run around the courtyard wall first and then run another circle after half a quarter of rest. After running, do farm work." "Yes. We'll take our leave." LIAN was more spirited than ever before. With a wave of his hand he called, "Follow me, all of you." End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 96. The Small Mansion Gate. "These servants will take our leave." After the 9 people saluted together, they went running with LIAN. LIAN said to Mian, "I'll accompany you today." Mian smiled, "Good, I'll accompany you, too." Aunt Fu and Uncle Fu lowered their heads and looked down. "Are the 2 coachmen gone?" Mian asked Uncle Fu. Uncle Fu said, "Yes. They left early this morning. They asked me to convey their gratitude to the young masters." LIAN saw Mian's unconscious action of supporting his waist. "Uncle Fu, go contact the building materials shop in the town and ask them to send some bricks and tiles." Uncle Fu asked, "Yes. May I know how much eldest young master needs? LIAN said, based on the house where little young master and I live now. I've got the estimation. We'll go at once. Uncle Fu left in a hurry. I forget to mention another thing. Qin Mian said to Aunt Fu, Aunt Fu, the new people are treated the same as you three. You tell them all. Besides, if they need any daily items, let them report to Uncle Fu to purchase them together. Yes. That's all. You can leave. After Aunt Fu left, Qin Mian stood up in a somewhat awkward posture. "Tie, I want to go soak." Together, LIAN said. Dian Bai, who was laying in the corner, seemed to hear a sound and came running with its tail wagging. Qin Mian then brought it together into the magical space. As soon as they entered the quadrangle courtyard gate, he and LIAN were simultaneously stunned. Their eyes fell on the pink ball in the flower bed. It seemed that overnight, the pink ball had doubled in size. The previously round flower bud finally split into a very hierarchical, tightly clustered petal tips. I didn't expect that the flower would grow very fast. Is it suddenly enlightened? Qin Mian joked and went over to touch it. The flower bud was slightly elastic and very comfortable to touch. Suddenly, his hand stopped. A trace of surprise appeared on his face. Was he imagining things? He felt a vague sense of delight from the flower bud. Did it like his touch? What? LIAN had a keen observation. Both of them didn't notice that Dian Bai didn't run around as soon as they entered the magical space like before. Instead, it looked at Qin Mian and LIAN in turn, with a very strange expression. Then, it ran away with its tail wagging. Qin Mian shook his head. He didn't know how to answer, so he just said, "Try touching it." LIAN's big palm covered the flower bud and he was also surprised. Qin Mian knew that it was not just his imagination then, so he took LIAN's hand with a smile and let him touch the flower bud again. "I'm sure this flower must be a wonderful flower when it blooms. Since it likes it, we'll touch it when we water it later." Although LIAN felt that touching a flower was a little weird, he still nodded, "Go soak." They no longer paid attention to the pink ball and went to the spiritual spring. LIAN filled a barrel of spiritual spring water with a bucket, which was directly heated by an husqi. Qin Mian lay inside and sighed comfortably. LIAN rolled up his sleeves and massaged his wife's waist. The spiritual spring water cured Qin Mian's discomfort. After soaking for a while, he recovered his energetic appearance. "Eldest young master, little young master." The second young master's wife came and said there is something urgent. From outside the magical space, the two men heard Aunt Fu report at the door. They quickly left the magical space. When Qin Mian opened the door, he saw Zhao Shi holding a not-so-ripe peach and gnawing at it. The corner of his mouth twitched. "Erlang's wife, what's the matter?" Qin Mian asked dully. Seeing that Zhao Shi was not anxious, he knew that nothing was wrong. Zhao Shi gave him a fawning smile. "Eldest sister-in-law, it's like this. Xiao Niang is pregnant. Father asked me to tell the two of you." "Oh." Qin Mian raised his eyebrows. It was indeed a major event in the old house. It had been more than half a year since Wei Shi married Lei Daqiang and yet there was no news. Wei Shi was still very anxious some time ago but unexpectedly she got pregnant. The excitement in the old house could make a major drama series, titled The Small Mansion Gate. "It's a great joyous event." Qin Mian said, "Tie and I will clean up first. Then we will go over." "No hurry, no hurry. Take your time. I'll wait for you." With that, Zhao Shi forced her way into the central hall. Qin Mian made an eye signal at Aunt Fu. Aunt Fu straightened her sturdy chest, went to Zhao Shi's side, and stood still. Then Erlang's wife, "Wait a moment." When Qin Mian and LIAN entered the kitchen, Zhao Shi stood up, wanting to look around. Aunt Fu took a few steps and blocked in front of her. She said with a happy smile, "Second young master's wife, sit down. It's very tiring to stand." Zhao Shi snorted. Since the servants of Dagur's family called Lei Xiangren the second young master, she should be called second young mistress. It's even more hateful when they address her as the second young master's wife. It was truly annoying. She didn't have to think about it though. The relationship between the two masters of leisurely farm residents and some people in the old house was not amicable. They already gave Lei Xiangren a lot of face by calling him the second young master, so why would they call her the second young mistress? Qin Mian had always been quick to do things, and soon picked up some of the snacks in the snack cabinet and put them in the food box, which Lei Tie carried. They went out with Zhao Shi. When passing by the peach tree at the end of the bridge, Zhao Shi stood on tiptoe and grabbed a large honey peach with one hand. She then pulled hard, plucking 2 peaches off. Qin Mian was in a good mood and didn't bother to argue with her. Out of the gate, Qin Mian saw Qianxi standing not far away. He was surprised. Dagur and eldest sister-in-law. Qianxi very politely greeted Qin Mian and Lei Tie. Qin Mian nodded to her, San Lang's wife. He had a better impression of Qianxi not only due to their relationship with Lei Xiangji but because she also never bothered them again. Zhao Shi and Qianxi fell behind Qin Mian and Lei Tie. Qianxi gave Zhao Shi a bad look. It was not proper for men to talk about Wei Shi's pregnancy after all, so Lei Daqiang originally asked her to go to leisurely farm residence to inform Lei Tie and Qin Mian. She planned to take this opportunity to ask the 2 men to help her family separate from the old house. Since Lei Xiangji couldn't speak about it, she had to. But she didn't expect Zhao Shi to come first and made her miss the opportunity. It was very aggravating. "What's wrong with your eyes, San Lang's wife?" Zhao Shi asked aloud. "Nothing." Qianxi took 2 quick steps, not wanting to talk to her. Qin Mian and Lei Tie had gone and distanced themselves by walking briskly. Zhao Shi gnawed on the honey peach while secretly looking at the harmonious figures of the 2 men. Why did it seem like these 2 men were not the same as usual? They were closer than ever, their shoulders would even touch from time to time. When she couldn't come up with anything, she stopped thinking about it and hastily caught up. Dagur and eldest sister-in-law have skills. This peach is so sweet even unripe. When it's ripe, it must be sweeter. Eldest sister-in-law, since we're family, can we buy it cheaper? Qin Mian took a meaningful look at her. She learned to be smart. Instead of taking it for free, she wants to buy. Unfortunately, he still wouldn't believe her. Without waiting for him to say anything, Qianxi said, "Really, second sister-in-law? Who in our village doesn't know that eldest sister-in-law's fruits are to be supplied to their winehouse this year? Aren't you putting eldest sister-in-law in an awkward position?" Zhao Shi gave her a cold stare and dared not entangle more because Lei Tie was present. "Haha, I forget for a moment." When they arrived at the old house, they heard Lei Daqiang's happy laughter before entering the door. Wei Shi caressed her abdomen that hadn't shown yet, with a smile on her lips. Occasionally, she raised her eyes to look at Lei Daqiang. Qin Mian looked at her for a moment and admired her in his heart. "Wei Lang and eldest daughter-in-law, you 2 are here." Wei Shi stood up to greet them. Lei Daqiang quickly helped her, "Be careful. She's not obviously pregnant yet. Old man, you can accompany Mei Mei every day later, lest she is careless and breaks like porcelain." Du Shi's shrill voice came from the door. Her eyes fixed on Wei Shi's abdomen, hoping to gouge out a hole in it. "Thanks for your concern, Gigi." Wei Shi subconsciously put a hand on her abdomen and smiled very amicably toward Du Shi. She had been very anxious about not getting pregnant after being married to Lei Daqiang for half a year. She was afraid that Lei Daqiang had some physical problems, and it would too late to have another child. Now, her wish had finally come true. Ever since Lei Xiangji became an entry-level examinee, Du Shi acted arrogant in front of her every day. She probably never heard of fortune's rise and fall. Having a child at an old age, Lei Daqiang would certainly give special treatment to her child. From now on, Du Shi could not think of being rampant in front of her anymore. Wei Shi said to Lei Daqiang, "Husband, it's time to plant paddy seedlings now. You and Gigi have many things to worry about. How can I let you accompany me every day while Gigi works alone? So, I thought, why don't we buy a maidservant? The maidservant can take care of me. Since I'm unable to share Gigi's burden now, making me feel very sorry. The maidservant can also help Gigi in her spare time. It's best all over." Du Shi's expression drastically changed. She clenched her right hand until the palm hurt, but she wasn't aware of it. "No way!" She objected at once, "We are just a family of pheasants. Why should we buy a maidservant? Don't make others laugh." Zhao Shi, Qian Shi, and Lei Xiangren were not good at getting involved in the affairs of their elders, and so they all kept silent. Qin Mian and Lei Tie wouldn't even want to interrupt. They sat at the side as the background. Unconcerned, Lei Daqiang dismissed Du Shi. "What should be laughed at about it? I even married a legitimate wife, so why should I be afraid of being laughed at for buying a maidservant?" Wei Shi had her own money, so Du Shi could not use the excuse that there was no money at home. After restraining herself for a long time, Du Shi asked, "If you buy a maidservant, where is she going to live?" Wei Shi smiled, "Gigi doesn't have to worry about this. It'll be fine to let the maid sleep on the floor in the room. Now it's hot and not easy to catch a cold. The future matters are for future discussion. There will be a solution. It's settled then." Seeing that his old wife was so angry, Lei Daqiang didn't want to be too heartless and comforted her. "All right, this matter is not only for Wei Er but also for you. Isn't it better for our family to be harmonious than anything else?" Du Shi did not say anything anymore. She sat down with a cold face. From the gloomy look in her eyes, she certainly was unwilling to drop the matter. After watching a full-scale drama, Qin Mian stood up and motioned for Lei Tie to pass the food box to Lei Daqiang. "Father, Mother, and Xiao Niang, congratulations! This is mine and Ati's little regard. We hope you don't dislike it. Well, you and Wei Lang has taken a lot of trouble." Lei Daqiang opened the food box and looked at it with a smile. "Your Xiao Niang is pregnant now, so her taste in food will be strange. If she wants to eat some fruits from your orchard, can." Wei Shi interrupted with a smile, "Husband, their business in the winehouse is important. I heard pregnant women prefer sour or spicy food." Qin Mian smiled without saying anything. Wei Shi gave him a kind look. Whether it was Lei Xiangji, Lei Tie, or Qin Mian, they were all targets that she wanted to draw to her side. Qin Mian gave a non-committal smile. "Father, Mother, and Xiao Niang, it's getting late. Tie and I are going back." Wei Shi nodded, "All right, come to visit when you are free." Qin Mian and Lei Tie left side by side. Du Shi didn't even look at them. Out of the old house, Qin Mian laughed, "Haha. Happy?" Lei Tie asked. Qin Mian raised his head high as he said, "Of course. I'm glad to see Du Shi humiliated." Lei Tie was often abused by Du Shi when he was young, but Qin Mian hadn't known how serious it was until last night. The scars on Lei Tie's back spoke of deep wounds which shocked him. Lei Tie held his hand and looked ahead, "Wife, having you is enough for me." Qin Mian breathed a sigh of relief and calmed his mood. The situation of the old house is becoming more and more complicated. It's a pity that San Lang, Si Lang, Wu Lang and Mei Mei still have to stay in the muddy water. Then again, how did the matter of separating the family came to nothing? End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 97. Being an elder sister-in-law is hard, ah. Lei Xiangji and Lei Xiangli was coming back from the farm with hose on their shoulders, sleeves rolled up to their arms and sweat on their flushed faces. "Dagur, eldest sister-in-law?" Qin Mian nodded and casually asked, Did you just came from the farm?
Yes.
We went to the vegetable garden to weed. Our family planted vegetables on 3 mu of land. The crops are growing well. Lei Xiangji's face filled with joy. Lei Xiangli was very calm. Without separating the family, the money earned is not your own. Qin Mian touched his chin. He seldom saw Lei Xiangren go to the farm, so he sympathized with Lei Xiangji. However, it was the old house's affair, after all. He and Lei Tie had no right to intervene since they had separated. If you have time, you can pick some good vegetables and send them to our wine house. Tie and I will inform the management in advance, he said kindly. Lei Xiangji responded. Instead of saying too much thank you, which might hurt their relationship, it was better to remember it in the heart. Qin Mian and Lei Tie had just taken a few steps when Lei Xiangji quickly caught up after hesitating for a moment. Lei Xiangli halted and also walked over. Deguer, eldest sister-in-law. Qin Mian turned around and asked suspiciously, is there anything else? Lei Xiangji said with a bitter smile, eldest sister-in-law, I won't beat around the bush with you. Si Lang and I, we want to separate from the family. I have mentioned it with our parents several times but they disagreed. I know that eldest sister-in-law has always been a man of ideas. I wonder if you can show us a way. Qin Mian frowned. Lei Xiangji asked them for help, which was understandable, but he should not mention anything while they were outside like this. If others saw them and told Lei Daqiang and Du Shi, then when Lei Xiangji and Lei Xiangli talked about separation again, Lei Daqiang and Du Shi would surely suspect him and Lei Tie. He didn't want to draw Du Shi's and Lei Daqiang's attention back to themselves. Lei Xiangli was more vigilant. He looked around and said to Lei Xiangji disapprovingly, Sangur, you are too bold. If other people see us having a discussion with Deguer and eldest sister-in-law here, they will get into trouble. The brothers tacitly knew what kind of people Du Shi and Lei Daqiang were. When the realization came over to Lei Xiangji, he was stunned and quickly apologized, eldest sister-in-law, it is my negligence. Qin Mian looked around to make sure there was no one else nearby. He shook his head and said, tomorrow morning, pick some vegetables and send them to the wine house with us. Being an elder sister-in-law is hard. Lei Xiangji secretly breathed a sigh of relief. In this way, he knew that Qin Mian agreed to give them advice. With the excuse of delivering vegetables, Lei Daqiang and Du Shi had no reason to suspect them. Thank you very much, eldest sister-in-law, Lei Xiangli said happily. To avoid being noticed, the four men quickly separated. After returning home, Qin Mian enthusiastically gave Lei Tie training ideas. After dawn and morning exercise, Lei Tie took Lei Qin Lei and the armed servants to start training. Uncle Fu and Aunt Fu picked vegetables in the garden and piled them up to transport to the wine house. Qin Mian made a few pancakes for breakfast and left them in the wok covered with the lid. He would eat it together with Lei Tie when he came back. In the meantime, he took Dian Bai to the garden. In the open space beside the grove, Lei Tie instructed the future armed servants to bind 2 jin of sandbags to their wrists and ankles and run 3 circles around the open space. Tied with heavy burdens, Lei Qin Lei and the others were not used to it, but they gritted their teeth and persisted. It was their honor that the master was willing to teach them skills. It was also a rare opportunity, so no one was willing to give up. After the run, Lei Tie showed a set of boxing techniques. Lei Qin Lei and the other 9 people attentively watched him while taking the opportunity to rest. Practice half of it today, Lei Tie said with an expressionless face and demonstrated the first half of the boxing set at a relatively slow speed. After the demonstration, he said in a low voice, try it. Lei Qin Lei and the 9 lads repeated the memorized boxing technique together. Lei Tie discovered that Lei Qin Lei and Lei Qin Hui were the fastest learners, so he slightly nodded. He remembered that Lei Qin Hui was the most outstanding teenager at the time he bought them, he could cultivate him as an important subordinate. Are you literate? Lei Tie asked. Lei Qinhui came forward and said, responding to eldest young master, this servant is literate. Lei Tie took out a piece of paper from his sleeve and handed it to him. Afterward, train according to the content of this. Lei Qinlei is in charge of supervision. Lei Qinlei and Lei Qinhui said respectfully, yes, eldest young master. In today practice, Lei Qinlei and Lei Qinhui are responsible for teaching others. The inspection will be the morning after tomorrow. Lei Qinlei and Lei Qinhui said, yes. Lei Tie didn't personally supervise, which made them felt more pressure after a little relief. Qin Mian watched from afar. He didn't go over but went to the garden. Lei Tie strode over and stood by him. In addition to imparting boxing and palm techniques, the rest of the training did not require him to be present all the time. He also couldn't spend all his time training the armed servants. Aunt Fu and Uncle Fu squatted in the garden, harvesting vegetables. At the side of the vegetable plot, there were several large baskets filled with eggplant, tomato, cucumber, chives, and green pepper. Uncle Fu patted off the mud on his hands and came over, carefully avoiding the vegetables on the ground. Eldest young master, little young master, we harvested a lot of vegetables. It's just that we only have one cart. I'm afraid it's not enough. Qin Mian looked at the fresh and tender vegetables and was very satisfied. No need to fret. You go to the village to borrow a cart for an emergency. I'll buy another cart when I get to town. Yes, this servant will go. Qin Mian and Lei Tie went back through the peach forest. Qin Mian chatted with him, I haven't been to the wine house for several days. I don't know how the business is. Although he had confidence, he still worried if he didn't see the situation in the wine house with his own eyes. Lei Tie's soothing voice contained the power to calm him down. He said, it won't be bad. 2 new dishes launch every day in the first month of business. It will surely attract customers. Qin Mian restored his confidence, I'm confident. He patted Lei Tie on the back, you're sweating. Go home and take a bath. After breakfast, we're going to town. They went to the gate after breakfast. Uncle Fu had loaded all the vegetables into the carts where more than a dozen baskets filled in. Uncle Fu and Lei Qinlei each drove a cart, while Qin Mian and Lei Tie rode on horsebacks. Lei Xiangji and Lei Xiangli waited at the entrance of the village early. There were also several baskets of green vegetables on the borrowed donkey cart. Eldest sister-in-law, check our vegetables first, Lei Xiangli said. Eldest brother and eldest sister-in-law took good care of them, so they were very grateful. They did not cheat and carefully picked out the rotten and damaged ones. No need, I believe you, Qin Mian said with a smile. He signaled Lei Qinlei and Uncle Fu to drive ahead. Lei Qinlei was a person with tact, and Uncle Fu was not silly. Seeing that they had something to say, the two drove the carts and pulled their distance apart. Eldest sister-in-law, we've troubled you and Dagur with what we said yesterday. Lei Xiangli cupped his hands in obeisance first. Qin Mian waved his hand and did not beat around the bush. The actual reason why you want to split up is mainly because of Erlang, right? Neither Lei Xiangji nor Lei Xiangli denied it. Yes. Lei Xiangli explained, we naturally care about Ergur, but Ergur and his wife often go too far. Once or twice, it can be tolerated but in the long run, they will polish the rest of our affection. It is better to divide our family as soon as possible. Qin Mian said slowly, you have 2 options at the moment. First, only separate Erlang's family. Lei Xiangli and Lei Xiangji were shocked. They had only wanted to thresh themselves out and didn't think that they could make Lei Xiangren split instead. If Lei Xiangren did, it would be great, but it wasn't possible with Lei Xiangren's character. Lei Xiangli asked, what about the second option? Lei Xiangji didn't speak as he looked down and wondered. He felt a little excited. Truthfully, he didn't want to separate from Lei Xiangji. It would be fine if only Erlang split from them. Lei Xiangji had a bright future. It didn't matter whether he and Qianqi could bask in his light, but he still hoped that his children could receive Lei Xiangji's light. He was sure to have a son in the future. Whether his son took the imperial examination or his daughter got married, they would not have a bad life if they had an influential uncle. The second option is for both of you to split up. Qin Mian's lips flashed a scornful smile. His tone was very flat as he said, I believe you also understand that Erlang wouldn't like to separate from Wu Lang. Lei Xiangji and Lei Xiangli had a helpless look and nodded at the same time. Lei Xiangren was a senseless person, but he was not stupid. On the contrary, he was a bit clever. It was impossible not to see that Lei Xiangji had a bright future. What should I do if I choose the first option? Lei Xiangji asked. Qin Mian chuckled. The reason why Erlang is so unscrupulous is because in the family, he is the only one amongst you brothers who gave the old man and the old lady 2 grandsons, and the other reason is mother. Lei Xiangji's voice was a little dull as he said, yes. Mother thinks highly of Ergur. It was a euphemism. Among Du Shi's 4 sons, she liked the 5th son the best and followed by the 2nd son. So, as long as you can change mother's view on Erlang, Qin Mian didn't say it in detail. He couldn't teach Lei Xiangji and Lei Xiangli everything step by step. It was up to them to decide what they should do. Lei Xiangji and Lei Xiangli were thoughtful. Lei Tie didn't speak all this while but only looked at Qin Mian. His wife was so smart. Qin Mian continued, of course. You still have a strong helper. Lei Xiangli's heart jolted, Wei Shi. Right. Lei Xiangji also started to see some solutions and his spirit rose. Wei Shi. I'm afraid that she dislikes Ergur more than we do. If we want to separate Ergur from the family, she will be happy to help us. Regardless of their specific plans, Qin Mian only said what he could say, it is more difficult for you to choose the second option. Mother is very clear of Erlang's character. If you both also separated from them, who would do the work at home? Lei Xiangji hesitantly said, then, can we only pick the first option? Lei Xiangli frowned. He wanted to be by himself. It's getting rowdier and rowdier in the house day by day. He was afraid that when he married, the family might become more lively. Not really. With a sentence from Qin Mian, both Lei Xiangji and Lei Xiangli looked at each other. End chapter.